Every day, your kitchen quietly produces waste. Vegetable peels, coffee grounds, leftovers you didn't finish, and almost all of it follows the same fate. It rots. Not just disappears, but breaks down in a slow, chaotic process that releases smells, attracts pests, and most importantly, leaks energy into the atmosphere. Because rot is not neutral, it's a loss. Now imagine taking that same waste, and instead of letting it decay, you preserve its energy. Not by freezing it, not by drying it, but by fermenting it. This is Bokashi, a method that transforms your kitchen scraps into something far more powerful than compost, something closer to a concentrated fuel source for soil. No smell, no flies, no turning piles, just a sealed container and microbes doing invisible work. And this isn't just a gardening trick. Research groups, including scientists at the University of California, Davis, are exploring microbial fermentation systems like this as part of a much larger question. How do we restore life to soil that's quietly dying across the planet? Because beneath the surface, something critical is happening. We are losing the biological engine that feeds plants. And strangely enough, the solution might not start on farms. It might start in your kitchen. To understand why Bokashi works differently, we need to zoom into something you never see: energy flow inside decomposition. When organic matter breaks down in a traditional compost system, it's exposed to oxygen. Microbes use that oxygen to rapidly metabolize the material, almost like a slow burn. This is called aerobic decomposition. And while it seems efficient, it comes at a cost. Roughly half of the carbon in that material is lost as carbon dioxide. At the same time, heat builds up, sometimes reaching temperatures hot enough to sterilize parts of the pile. That heat isn't helping your plants, it's energy escaping. In physics terms, this is entropy in action. A highly organized structure, your food, is being broken down into less organized forms, and energy is dissipating into the environment. So while composting creates useful soil amendments, it's also fundamentally a lossy system. Now compare that to Bokashi. Inside the bucket, oxygen is almost completely absent. That changes everything. Instead of oxidation, burning, you get fermentation. Fermentation is fundamentally different. It doesn't release energy as heat, it reorganizes it. The carbon stays locked inside organic acids, amino compounds, and partially broken down molecules. This is what we can think of as carbon lock. Instead of losing half your material to the atmosphere, you keep almost all of it. Not as raw scraps, but as chemically transformed, energy-rich material. It's the difference between burning wood and turning it into charcoal. One releases energy instantly, the other stores it. Bokashi is not decomposition. It's preservation under transformation. And that means when it enters the soil, it doesn't arrive depleted. It arrives charged. So what's doing this transformation? Not heat, not oxygen, but a carefully designed microbial ecosystem known as EM1, effective microorganisms. This is not random compost biology. It's more like a controlled fermentation culture, similar to what you'd find in yogurt, sourdough, or wine. Except here, the goal isn't food, it's soil energy. The first group, lactic acid bacteria. These microbes immediately begin producing lactic acid, dropping the pH of the environment. That acidity does something critical. It suppresses harmful bacteria that would normally cause putrefaction. Instead of rotting, the material becomes preserved, like pickled vegetables. Then come the yeasts. They break down complex carbohydrates into simpler compounds, sugars, alcohols, enzymes. This is biochemical pre-processing. Imagine trying to eat a whole raw potato versus mashed potatoes. Same material, but one is much easier to access. That's what yeast are doing, making nutrients accessible. And then there are phototrophic bacteria. These are some of the most fascinating organisms in the system. They can convert organic compounds and even light energy into bioactive substances. Some of these compounds act as growth stimulants for plants. Others enhance microbial diversity in the soil. Together, this system doesn't just break food down, it reprograms it. By the end of the process, your scraps are no longer scraps. They are pre-digested, microbially enriched, chemically transformed input for soil ecosystems. Normally, when you add compost to soil, microbes still need time to process it. With Bokashi, much of that work is already done. It's like skipping digestion and going straight to absorption. As fermentation happens, something else emerges, a liquid byproduct often called Bokashi tea. It looks simple, but chemically and biologically, it's incredibly active. This liquid contains dissolved nutrients, nitrogen compounds, organic acids, as well as dense populations of living microbes. If the solid material is a slow-release energy source, this liquid is fast-acting. When diluted and added to soil, it immediately introduces beneficial microbes into the root zone. These microbes begin interacting with plant roots in ways that are almost invisible, but incredibly important. They help convert nutrients into forms plants can absorb. They compete with harmful pathogens, and they form symbiotic relationships that improve root efficiency. In a way, Bokashi tea is less like fertilizer and more like a probiotic for soil. It doesn't just feed plants, it rebuilds the living system that feeds them. Now, step back and look at the bigger picture. Every year, humanity produces billions of tons of organic waste. Most of it ends up in landfills. There, it decomposes without oxygen, releasing methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. At the same time, agricultural soils are losing fertility, not just nutrients, but life. Microbial diversity is collapsing, organic matter is declining, and the nitrogen cycle, the system that sustains plant growth, is becoming unstable. We are extracting more from the soil than we return, and that imbalance is growing. But what if the solution isn't only industrial? What if it's distributed, localized, scalable at the level of individual households? A simple bucket, a microbial culture, and a shift in perspective, from waste to resource. Because Bokashi reframes what kitchen scraps are, not garbage, but stored solar energy, captured by plants, processed by microbes, and returned to the soil in a form that can be used again. It's a closed loop, a small one, but one that mirrors the larger cycles that sustain life on Earth. And if enough people adopt systems like this, you don't just reduce waste, you begin to restore balance. Because sometimes the most powerful technologies aren't the largest or most complex. Sometimes they fit under your kitchen.